Okay. So this next video is going to be titled, Can Shapeshifters Be Your Family Members? And, it's a pretty interesting video. On the last video I did about shapeshifters, I forgot to add one thing. You know, people who believe in shapeshifters, you do well to know that there are non-humans among us. But what you haven't quite realized is that you think the non-humans are actually a small percentage of the population. That is not the case. The case is human beings are actually the minority. These non-humans, whether they can shapeshift or not, they're actually the majority of the population. And that's one thing that David Icke and all those kind of people, that's one thing that they don't tell you. They'll have you think that these shapeshifters, these non-humans, are actually the minority, but they're actually, in a way, the majority. A majority of the population is not human, okay? And maybe not all of the non-humans can shapeshift, but, I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I mean, a non-human is a non-human. Whether they can shapeshift or not, doesn't really matter that much. But some of the non-humans can shapeshift, other ones can't. My guess is that the more advanced, the more powerful non-human imposters, they can shapeshift. Like the fallen angels and the higher level demons, maybe they can shapeshift. But the lower level demons, they probably can't shapeshift. But, it really doesn't matter that much to me. They're all non-human, so, yeah. I would say, 10% or less of the population nowadays is probably human, in my opinion. So, that's what we're dealing with. But, with so many non-humans running around, the question then is, well, since I'm human, everyone in my family has to be human, right? No. The answer is no. That is not the case. No, not everyone in your family has to be human. Maybe your parents, when they gave birth to you, maybe they were human. But this world, it can be pretty, it can be pretty harsh in a way. And you only have so long to find Christ, okay? And if you don't find Christ after a certain period, depending on who you are, you very well might be replaced with a non-human imposter. That's how this world works. And so, maybe maybe your parents were human when they gave birth to you, but they're not human anymore. And, maybe some of your family members were human, but they're not anymore. And some of them were never human at all, okay? Your family is split between humans and non-humans. That's just how it is, okay? Not everyone in your family is really, is really your family, is really human. They have a saying, not all skin folk are kinfolk, and that is true. Just because someone has your skin color doesn't mean that they are human like you are, if you're a human watching this video. But there should also be a saying, not all kinfolk are kinfolk as well, because some of your kinfolk, in fact, most of your kinfolk, are not actually human. People don't really know too much about that. Well, humans don't, but they do. They might share your genetics, and they might look a little bit like you, but spiritually speaking, they aren't human. Spiritually speaking, they're fallen angels and demons in human clone bodies, but they're not actually human, okay? So, just because you're a human, you shouldn't assume that everyone in your family has to be human. And I'm not just talking about your cousins or your uncles or whatever. I'm talking about your immediate family as well. You know, your brothers and sisters and things like that. Your parents, okay? You shouldn't just assume they're human, because a lot of the times they're not. And they may have been human at one point in time, but they may have lost their souls, you know, doing some masonry stuff, or joining a fraternity, or doing something bad that you don't even know about, or giving up on God in general. They may have lost their souls and been human at one point, but they're not human anymore. So anyway, I had talked about my experiences with shapeshifters in the other video, but my scariest experience with shapeshifters, I didn't even talk about yet. So my scariest experience with shapeshifters was, I was with a family member. I won't get too specific, but I was with a family member, and, I was sitting in my room. And, this is after I had found out about these clones and a lot of these inhuman types, right? And this family member, could have been a cousin or whatever. I'm not going to get specific. But this family member of mine, I was praying about them. And, I was wondering, like, man, are they human? I don't know. Are they human? And I was wondering about it, I was praying about it. But like I've said, be careful what you wish for, and be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it, okay? You pray to know whether or not your family members are really human. Well, if you're ready for it, God just might have them give you an answer. And chances are that answer is not going to be one that you wanted, because chances are your family members aren't human. So, I'm in my room. Well, it's late at night, and, I'm with this family member, and I hear just the weirdest sound, and it seems like a language, but it's not. It's not any human language I know. Like, I like to think of myself as being a fairly studious individual. Like, I can't speak any language other than English, but I know how languages sound like. I've heard a lot of European languages. I know how they sound like. I know how various Asian languages sound like. Okay, I've heard them before. I've heard a few African languages. Like, I would know if someone were to speak African or an Asian language or a European language, I would know it, okay? Like, I've heard them before. I've heard people speaking various different languages before. Even if I can't understand them, I know it's a human language. But what I heard was unlike any human language I had ever heard in my entire life. It was totally different. And not only that, but the sound I don't think any human could have made the sound that this person was making. No human. I mean, it was a totally inhuman sound. And the only way I could describe it would be if, like, a praying mantis could talk. It sounded like that. It was like... It sounded like that. But, I mean, obviously not quite like that. But it sounded like that. But it sounded basically, like I said, in my mind, I imagined it sounded like like if a praying mantis, a giant praying mantis could talk. In my mind, they would sound like that. That's basically what I was thinking. And it creeped me out. I was, I've dealt with a lot of spooky stuff in my life. Like, I've dealt with, sleep paralysis. I've dealt with varying levels of demonic possession. I've dealt with all these kind of things in my life, okay? But it was something that I've seen demon spirits, but this is something that I've never dealt with before in my entire life. And I was honestly quite scared. And so I was calling out to that family member. I was like, so-and-so, are you there? And they lean in through my door, which was like partially open or whatever. They lean in through my door because I guess I was watching TV or playing a game or something. And they lean in through the door, and they had this just inhuman smile. It was just, it was a creepy, inhuman smile. Not showing any teeth, but just, it was like, those serial killers? Or like Dexter, when they give like that smile, but they're not showing any teeth, and their face just looks vacant, and like, they could just chop you up with an axe or whatever. That's the kind of smile this family member was giving me. And then, they was holding on to the dorm frame while smiling, and then they just kind of lean. They just kind of lean away from the door, and then they go out of the door after having given me that smile. This just straight inhuman smile, right? And I guess God had given me my answer about whether or not this family member was human, and the answer was no. Now, I call it shape-shifting because in my mind, I imagined that while this person was in the room that they were in, they had probably shape-shifted to be able to make such an inhuman noise. I'm not sure if they could have made an inhuman noise like that while in human form. I don't know. But, I had gotten my answer. And so, are there shapeshifters in this world? Yeah. And are some of them your family members? Absolutely. So, it's just me telling you guys about it, and, it's not like they're going to kill you in your sleep or something. They're not going to stab you or something in your sleep. It doesn't work like that. But, they are trying to set you up for a downfall. They are trying to, get you to lose your soul, but it's in a psyop way, okay? It's not gonna be in a, they're gonna stab you in the neck kind of way. It's not like that. They're going to basically to try to get you to lose your soul through your own actions, through being evil by your own actions, okay? So, don't get too afraid, but do be aware of these kind of things. Like, not all of your family is human, and if you're human, they know who you are, but you don't really know who they are, okay? So it's just something to look at, something to be aware of, and I hope you like this video, and look for more videos in the future, of course, Lord willing. But yeah, see you later.